Tonight on The Buzz, we look at the current state of the media industry from 3 different perspectives. I can't think of a time when our industry's been more volatile or financially stressed, so tonight we'll look at why and how to survive it. Starting with Kevin Bourke. He's the founder and principal of BourkePR with nearly 30 years experience in technology public relations. He's a marketing consultant to some of the most innovative tech companies in visual effects, post-production, and production technology. Then James Mathers, cinematographer and founder of the Digital Cinema Society, shares his thoughts on camera gear, obsolescence, and the challenges of investing in hardware without losing your shirt. Next, we continue with Rick Barrett. He's the VP of Operations for Maxon, the Americas, and has been helping designers discover and take advantage of Cinema 4D for over 15 years. Rick looks at the new disruptive technology of 360-degree video, VR, and what to expect in software at NAB. All this plus Tech Talk and a Buzz flashback. The Buzz starts now.
Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Otherworld Computing at MacSales.com and by ImagineProducts.com, the workflow experts.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hello, Mike.
I was just reading that thing. I know what you're going to ask me, Larry.
Okay.
Mike,
so Mike,
tonight,
wait. All right, you read it.
Tonight, we're taking an overall look at our industry. What's your perspective?
Is the glass
and my
half...
perspective, Larry, is the glass half empty or half full? Seriously, is that? Do you think of me as a pessimist or an optimist?
I wanted to give you a binary choice because goodness knows if I gave you a choice.
Did you write that, by the way?
I wrote that. Isn't that brilliant?
That was brilliant.
It's Oscar-winning material right there.
I could say anything to that question. What is the? I don't know. No, that's honestly true. I don't know. Do you?
Well, I've discovered there's a whole lot more confusion now than usual.
That's why I said I don't know.
And I've discovered there's not a lot of spare cash floating around. Cash flow is really tight.
No, everything is weird. Everything is tight, as you said. But it's I don't know the answer.
I'm looking forward.
I think if you would have asked me last year, I might have, but not this year.
I'm looking forward to our 3 guests because they're going to be talking about it and from a variety of different perspectives. It's going to be an interesting show.
Yeah, well, hopefully I will learn from you and our 3 guests.
Well, I'm expecting.
Which is why I show up every week, Larry, because I need to learn from you and our guests.
You know,
I come home enlightened.
You give the illusion of blankness, but
That's
underneath
why I've
that
been
blank
married
slate,
for 40 years, because I'm enlightened each week with it.
I want to remind you to subscribe to our free show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue, every week, gives you an inside look at the buzz, quick links to different segments on the show, and curated articles of special interest to filmmakers. Mike and I will be right back with Kevin Bourke after this.
Still to come on The Buzz.
When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting macsales.com today. That's macsales.com. Kevin Bourke is the founder and principal of BourkePR. He has nearly 30 years' experience in technology public relations. He's a marketing consultant to some of the most innovative tech companies in the visual effects, post-production, and production technology markets. Hello, Kevin. Welcome.
Hey, Larry. How are you?
We are doing well and looking forward to chatting with you today. Before we get into sort of the industry overview that I want to head into, first set the scene. Describe what it is that you do. You don't work for just one company.
No, that's right. That's right, Larry. I'm a consultant to actually many companies in the, as you mentioned, the post-production industry. So I work with a lot of different companies on many levels. Public relations being a big part of what I do for them, communications strategy, and even just navigating the markets because there is so much going on and there's so much constant change and. So I really help my clients, navigate the waters in the markets that we play in.
What types of companies do you represent? Not necessarily by name, but by type. Are they really small startups? Are they large established companies? How would you describe them?
Yeah, they vary. Primarily, I work with small, sometimes startups, sometimes established companies, but usually they're small. Maybe 3 or 4 person shops, and it's the way when I started my business, my philosophy was, I want to work with these companies that have great products, great ideas, but they might not have the connections or the resources or the wherewithal to tell their stories. And I always felt like, these little guys deserve their time in the spotlight too. So I partner with a lot of companies like that and help them, like I said, get their time in the spotlight.
Well, it's because you partner with all these different companies that I really want to start tonight's show with you. Because as we are getting ready for NAB, and as Mike and I were chatting at the beginning of the show, this is a particularly stressful time in our industry. It seems more confused than usual. And I wanted to just get your take on how you would describe the state of the media industry today.
Yeah, there's so much going on, and on kind of every end of the market, so much change, so much in flux. From the camera companies, from the capture side of things, we're talking about 4K for a while. Now we're talking about 8K cameras. The cameras are getting smaller, they're getting cheaper, and things are moving so fast. I think in the broadcast side of things, the old broadcasters are scrambling to figure out what's going on out there. The shift to the internet with Netflix and Hulu and people's behaviors changing, consumers' behaviors changing so dramatically. And I think a lot of these companies are trying to figure out this new model and how they fit in.
Are you seeing the change principally in audience fragmentation? Is that what's driving the main traditional media companies, or is it technology?
I think it's both. I think technology is moving at light speed, and the audience's preferences are changing along with it. Traditional broadcast, cable TV. I think I even said this to you. I don't watch cable TV anymore. I want to watch what I want, when I want to watch it, and on the device I want to watch it on. And I think the traditional broadcasters are really scrambling to catch up with that and figure that out and monetize that. And I think that's a real challenge. And they're scrambling to figure that out.
What trends do you see driving media technology? If we shift to the broader market and the independent filmmaker, however that's defined, whether it's weddings or corporate or broadcast or cable or documentaries, what trends are driving that media technology that we need to pay attention to?
Well, I think, the internet and, YouTube and just the democratization of the technology at every end of the pipeline, I think is really driving this, and price lines coming down, access so ubiquitous that really everyone can be a filmmaker, everyone can be a broadcaster. With, like I said before, the cameras coming down in price, the resolutions and the quality getting better and better, the availability of distribution channels to share your content are far and wide. I mean, YouTube is exploding just within the past year.
Yeah,
even
but
more so.
the problem I've got with YouTube is that YouTube doesn't give us the same business models that traditional broadcast or cable does. Based on my views alone, every 100,000 views equates to $110. So 1 million views is $1,000. You can't finance much with that.
Well, yeah, and again, I think that's where the strain and people scrambling to figure out how to monetize that, because at the end of the day, the value is where the audience is, and in traditional models, well, that was easy. You could just put up ads and you would reach those people. But it's an entirely new it's a new era, and it's incredibly challenging to try to monetize that. But again, we're seeing the rise of the YouTube celebrity with millions of followers. Some of these young kids are millionaires because of the audience that they've built on this new medium. It's becoming the new mainstream, and that's where it's kind of this new era of content creator is now striving for, because that's where the audience is, and they're skipping over the traditional channels and going directly to their audience. And capitalizing on it. And again, the old school models are saying, "What's going on here? What's happening? We need to figure this out. How do we get a piece of this?" And I think they don't have the answers yet.
Yeah, well, they think they got the answers because a couple months ago they launched YouTube Red, and that's pretty much Netflix for $10 a month. That you can so original programming on YouTube that might end up involving some of their millionaire kids who are doing fashion videos. I don't know, but right now there are some decent shows. Everything, and it's a subscription model, $10 a month. It's a subscription model, and if you paid attention to some of the characters on some of these new shows these new programs, they're all YouTubers. These are all individual YouTubers that have built a name for themselves, and now they've all come together and they're creating highly produced content in the form of these shows, these new shows on YouTube Red. Yeah, if you go to YouTube Red and scroll down, it's originals from creators that you love. Yeah, exactly. I was watching the trailer of one of them, and I was like, I know that guy, I know that guy, I know that guy. And 2 years ago, these people were nobodies, or a year ago they were nobodies, and suddenly it's like I said before, it's this new mainstream. It's amazing. I'm fascinated with this whole thing. Fascinated. Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
One of the challenges is trying to figure out how we're going to finance all this gear. You're working with companies that are trying to sell to media people. How are they getting money? What's getting their attention? Is it all subscription based or what?
Well, on the software side, I'm seeing a lot of software moving to subscription-based model. I think people still are spending money on the capture gear. Camera companies, I think, are still making the money. And we're going to see a lot of very cool things. I'm excited for this NAB. I think we're going to see a lot of great things from the camera companies. Blackmagic just announced that they're finally shipping the micro cinema camera. So I think these guys are they're making the money, and and speaking of trends too, I think 360 video VR, like this is kind of like this whole next wave of what's going to be hot in terms of technologies at NAB. Last year I think it was drones were really hot, and everyone was talking 4K. I think this year everyone's talking and very excited about VR and 360. I think drones are we're going to see a lot of drone activity, but I think the hype is kind of dying off a little bit there. It's just becoming a little too saturated. You know, the regulations are kind of putting a damper on things, but it's become a very saturated market very quickly, and it's getting harder to make money with that. And so I think that hype is going to start dying down a little bit.
We're going to be talking in the third segment of the show with Rick Barrett, who is with Maxon, specifically talking about 360 video and VR. So we're going to follow up with him on that. I want to come back to content creators, people that are creating content. Not everybody can be a YouTube star, and we're seeing that most people don't want to pay for online content, and other distribution outlets have had budgets fall. Where's the money going to be? How do we finance our content creation habit?
Yeah, that's the big question. That's the big question.
Well, come up with the answer, because there's a lot of people want to know what it is, would you?
Come on, Kevin, that's why you're on.
Well, if I come up with the answer to that, then you know, we'll be having a big party, because that's the tough question right now. Absolutely.
How does social media affect all this?
Well, social media plays a huge role in terms of, you know, vendors and, you know, just companies reaching directly to their audiences. I think social media has directly turned the old advertising models upside down. You know, and again, I think the tricky part is the younger companies. You know, they're very comfortable with it. They dive into social media. They engage directly with their end users. They build community, and they build value around those communities. And I think some of the older school companies, they see this going on, and they don't quite understand it, and they know they have to do it, but they don't know how to do it, and so they wade into it, and it doesn't quite feel right. It's a little disingenuous, or they just don't quite get it. So they have a hard time making social media effective for them. But meanwhile, like I said, some of these newcomers to the marketplace, they've grown up with social media. They know how to engage, and they know where to engage. And it's not just Twitter. It's not just Facebook. In fact, it's moved on. You know, Snapchat is becoming huge in it's video. Vine, Instagram continues to take off as a great way to reach your audiences, because again, we live and die in the visual imagery business, and Instagram is photos and video, and Snapchat is video, and it's becoming the next way to connect with your customers. And again, you know, some of the older generation, they don't get it. They don't quite understand it, and they're trying to figure it out, but it's a challenge.
You're speaking to me, because I'm still using Twitter and Facebook a lot for spamming everybody on the Super Meet and my local user groups and everything like that. But millennials, they don't necessarily use Twitter and Facebook anymore. They've gone over to Instagram and Snapchat and Vine and texting. And how that works marketing-wise, I have no idea. But that's what they use. And somebody of my generation can't quite figure that out when you're a one-man band, and you got to do that. 2 years ago, it was all Facebook and Twitter, and ain't Facebook and Twitter for the younger generation anymore.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Kevin, what can we expect from NAB? What trends are you looking at?
Well, like I said, I think a big one's going to be VR and 360. I think the camera companies with 4K, 8K, HDR. I think those are going to be big topics of conversation. The North Hall has a virtual reality pavilion. So I think we're going to see a lot of traffic around there as well. We're going to see 360 rigs. We're going to see a lot of vendors creating that virtual or augmented reality experiences and trying to, show people how they can create immersive experiences for their audiences. So I think that's going to be a really interesting piece of the show this year.
What should media professionals do to decide whether to buy into a new trend or not? How do we decide where to jump in?
Yeah, a lot of people got burned on 3D.
Well, yeah, a lot of people did. Because it was, it was clearly a trend. But what's interesting about that trend is a lot of the people from 3D, the experts, the stereoscopic experts, they're the ones who have evolved into this whole VR and 360. Because if you think about it, the technology for VR and 360 is rooted in 3D. So, it wasn't so much that died away. It's evolved, because those technologies are, like I said, it's rooted in 3D technology. But, there are visionaries out there that, they see where things are going and they drive, with either new technologies, new softwares, new experiences for their audiences. And it's you have to keep a careful watch on how it's resonating. And you mentioned 3D, it never resonated with audiences.
Yeah, well, the same with Google Glass. I mean, there's sociology involved here. There's the human condition, and you take the chance, you take the risk. But you got to look at that human condition, because they're not going to wear those goofy glasses, and the same thing with possibly with VR. I don't know.
Kevin, for people that are interested in keeping track of what you're doing, where can they go on the web?
Well, you could follow me on BourkePR.com or on Twitter at BourkePR.
That's BourkePR, all one word, BourkePR.com. And Kevin Bourke is the founder, the president, and chief bottle washer of BourkePR. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Kevin
today.
always helps us on the Super Meet, too, and thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Vegas.
Always.
It'll be fun. Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Still to come on The Buzz.
Imagine Products has been specializing in workflow applications for over 25 years. They started with executive producer back in 1991, an all-in-one logging and offline editing tool. In 2006, ImageMine was used in the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics, and ShotPut Pro was released. Today, there are more than 30,000 ShotPut Pro users worldwide. Pre-roll Post for Macintosh was released in 2012. This is an LTFS archiving application compatible with any LTO tape drive, as well as Sony's ODA. Pre-roll Post for Windows was released at the end of 2015. It's the only LTFS archiving application of its kind for less than $500. Imagine Products has 3 simple goals for its software: make it powerful, make it easy to use, and make it affordable. It's easy to see why Imagine Products has been successful for 25 years. Imagine what comes next. Visit ImagineProducts.com to download a demo.
James Mathers is a veteran cinematographer and founder of the nonprofit educational cooperative, the Digital Cinema Society. It's always a delight having James on the show. Hello, welcome back.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for having me.
James, as we get ready for NAB, we're taking a look at the current status of our industry. So, wearing your Digital Cinema Society hat, how would you describe what you're seeing today?
Well, NAB is always a big deal for our group. We go up there and we shoot interviews to try to show what's new at NAB to the people that can't make it, as I know you do as well. And what I'm sensing in the industry right now is a lot of fear. There's fear that the producers have that they're not able to keep up with the technology, that their material is going to be obsolete, and there's fear from equipment owners and facilities, owner-operators like myself, all the way up to large rental facilities, that they're not going to be able to amortize their investment in this new gear before the next big thing that the producers demand is going to come along. And the manufacturers fear that they're not going to be perceived as having the latest and greatest, the next cutting-edge technology. So they're always trying to offer something new, something better, and at the same time, there's a lot of price pressure, so they have to make it cheaper. So there's just a lot of fear going around, and it makes people, reticent to invest in new equipment, reticent to move ahead.
You know, that ties in with exactly what I'm seeing, is that not only is there fear, but everybody is sort of sitting back and waiting, which means that nothing's getting, I mean, it means that budgets are collapsing, and we're all sort of chasing our tail, afraid of what's going to happen. Is that a true summary?
I think it might be. I mean, I hope not, because, that's the surest way to just freeze the whole economy, freeze the economy of our industry. And we will keep marching ahead. Technology keeps improving, and we want to utilize it. We want to utilize the best tools. So I hope that things, these kind of fears, ease, and that people can move forward in a rational way. Would you like to hear my analysis of how this sort of got started?
I would love to hear your analysis of how this got started.
I think there's one word. It's a color. It's a company. Red, I think, started this, and don't get me wrong, I give them a heck of a lot of credit for, coming up with the systems that they did, and really turning the industry on its ear, and that did start a race in at least camera technology, which is what I follow the most as both a cinematographer and for Digital Cinema Society. But Red were able to, I don't know if they seeded their cameras or, in some way or another, they persuaded these really top-end filmmakers like Steven Soderbergh and Peter Jackson and Ridley Scott and David Fincher to use their gear on some major motion pictures, which started winning Oscars and other awards for the cinematography and Best Picture. I mean, it really elevated the prestige of their cameras. And meanwhile, they had a lot of aspiring filmmakers, and they were able to convey the idea, I think, to these people that they could, for a fairly small investment, they could have the same tools that these top filmmakers were having. So suddenly you had aspiring filmmakers, and everybody's an aspiring filmmaker investing in these cameras. You had all the camera crew, camera assistants, buying a camera so they could move up, and you had actors and producers. I say everybody and their dentist suddenly owned a Red camera. And you went from an industry that maybe there was several thousand cinema cameras in the world. Suddenly there's several tens of thousands of cinema cameras almost overnight in the period from, say, 2007 to 2009. Since so many people had them, that started to devalue the rental that you could get for them. And as I said, there's a lot of aspiring cinematographers would, like throw in their camera if they could get hired to shoot a movie. And then Red got out-redded by Blackmagic Design. They came out with a even less expensive camera, more capable, and Red kept coming up with more models, and the other camera manufacturers, the large multinational companies like Sony and Panasonic, and everybody was making these high-end digital cinema cameras. Canon, of course, came at it from the DSLR side, and that was a whole other part of the revolution. So you had all these people buying cameras. They didn't always have everything they needed for a proper package, but they had a Red package that they were able to make available. And I once wrote an article, how I spent $100,000 on a $17,500 camera, which that's because of the lenses and all the support gear that you need to, to really make a professional package. These other people didn't have it. They started using still camera lenses, but they were able to make some form of a movie. A lot of movies were made, and then there's a lot of indie low-budget movies. So that meant that the budgets started coming down for what was, what people could expect to get, and for their indie movie. And a lot of them never saw the light of day. I mean, sure, they're on the internet maybe, and they might be able to be seen by millions of people, but if they don't get a proper promotional release, by one of the major studios, and with all the advertising and everything, nobody's ever going to know about it. Nobody's ever going to see these movies. So it's sort of a whole cycle of devaluation. And there's lots of movies out there, and a lot of them sit in closets. And yeah, there's been a democratization where, people can make a movie more easily. Now you could make a movie with your iPhone, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be properly distributed. And I think that has sort of contributed to the devaluation of equipment. And then somehow there's producers get the idea if they're not paying a lot for the equipment, then they shouldn't pay a lot for the crew. So it has become a very difficult way to make a living to work on indie movies like I used to for many, many years.
Well, this gets to be so depressing, I don't even want to think about it, because budgets collapse to the floor, and it's the old argument that we had with DSLR cameras. Just because you own a camera doesn't mean you know how to take a photograph. That's right. What snapshots are all about. And it seems that the video industry's been trapped in this for the last several years, where gear keeps getting cheaper and producers discount the expertise of the operator and feel that the operator's fee should go down as well. How do we fight this? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, it's really depressing, because it is, but how do we fight it? How do we get past it?
I'm not sure what the answer is, and I hate to just bitch and moan, as I have been doing. And it's not to say that I'm anything against better camera technology. I think we should still, keep going and get the best tools that are available at our disposal. Like I said, filmmakers will use just about anything, any tool they can get their hands on to make a movie, even an iPhone. But if they can get better and better quality, why not? And that's the good side of it, is that all these tools are coming down in price, and the ability to produce higher quality images is getting to be more and more accessible. It doesn't mean that you're a master craftsman because you own the camera, but it does at least allow you to have that ability. Say 4K. 4K is something that's the hot topic. It was anyway last year. This year I think it's going to be HDR, but that's another question. But 4K, it's great. 4K, you can reframe, you can stabilize, and then of course there's the big argument, archival value, and it is better. It's better to capture at the highest level you can possibly afford, because it's the quality is just going to keep getting better. And if you want to have your product accessible in years from now, then you better be in the best format that you can. But I'm paraphrasing a funny comment that I saw on a CML recently. It said, somebody commented, the best way to maintain your archival value is to make something that people want to watch in the future. And that's really it. The content is king, and these are all just tools to, do the best you can.
Well, there's a philosophical question, and I also want to get your take on what's happening at NAB, but philosophically, is there much more that we can do with image quality? Because once image quality equals human sight, then really there's no advantage to an 8K or 16 or 32 or 2 million K, because our eyes can't perceive the difference. Are we going to top out soon with what image quality consists of? Well,
you do raise some good points. There's a point of diminishing returns as far as as we keep increasing resolution. I should have mentioned another big advantage of shooting at higher resolutions is that whenever you down-res, you're always going to get a better image. So if you start with 4K or 6K, even though you're only delivering in HD, you're going to get a better quality product. But then it's limited by the size of the screen. If you have a 4K monitor display and you get back more than a few feet, you're not really able to tell the difference between 4K and HD. So unless the screens get bigger than they can really fit into a house, unless we start making larger and larger rooms, there's really no reason to go much beyond 4K for display. Maybe we could go 8K and more for production to take advantage of some of the things I said before, but I don't think that there's any need to really go for display much beyond 4K in the foreseeable future.
What are you looking at for NAB?
NAB, I'm looking at HDR, and that's what I was going to mention next. I think that the research has shown that you can show somebody an HD image next to a 4K image, and you can turn off the 4K and butterfly them, and people really can't tell the difference, like I said, more than a few feet back. However, you butterfly an image of 4K and then one that's 4K with HDR, and you turn the HDR off, and people say, "Hey, what happened? Why did the picture go so squirrely?" It's because they can really see and value the image improvement that you get with HDR. Now, HDR requires that it's mostly a post-production effect, but you have to have a good camera. You have to have a camera with a lot of dynamic range, and it has the ability to capture that kind of an image that makes it worthwhile to show in HDR. But all the top-end cameras are there, They're talking, 15 stops of dynamic range these days, which is quite a bit.
Where can people go on the web to learn more about the Society?
If they'd like to learn more, they can go to www.digitalcinemasociety.org. That's our homepage.
And for people that feel that you yourself need more projects to keep you busy, where can they go on the web to learn about you?
Well, the name of my business is Migrant Film Workers, a little takeoff of the migrant farm workers, and they can reach that at migrantfilmworkers.com.
And James Mathers is the founder of the Digital Cinema Society and a cinematographer himself. James, thanks for joining us today. This has been fun.
Thank you, Larry. It's always a great time with you. Take care.
Still to come on The Buzz. Welcome to Tech Talk.
Once you've created a compression setting, well, the best way to phrase this is compressing is about as exciting as watching paint dry. I think paint probably is more fun. Once you've figured out what your settings are, you don't want to have to do this movie after movie after movie. Life is too short. It's what popcorn was invented for. You want to do something meaningful with your life. So I want to automate the process so that I don't have to open compressor and create all these different settings each time. That's where droplets come in. Just as we can automate inside Adobe Media Encoder with a watch folder, we can automate inside compressor with a droplet. Here's how this works. Find the setting that you like. In this case, I'm going to pretend that this is my favorite setting for compressing files for the website. Hold the Control button or right mouse click on the file and say Save as Droplet. And now I'm going to say drop here to compress for website. We'll save this to the desktop and click Save. There on my desktop is this droplet. Drop here to compress for website. I don't even have to start compressor. With watch folders, AME needs to be running. With droplets, compressor does not. Simply grab the files that you want to compress. Here I've grabbed a bunch of them. Drag the entire stack on top of the droplet, and the droplet says, I'm about to compress all of these files and store them in the default location of compressed files. When I click OK, it goes off in the background and happily chugs away, compressing all these files without me having to start compressor or change a setting. In the beginning, when I was putting these webinars together, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the best compression settings for streaming and for downloading. But I've nailed those. I'm happy with where they are. I don't want to have to reset these each time, so I've created a droplet. Just drop the file onto the droplet, compress it, and it's done. And in fact, if you've got a job action associated with the droplet, it can compress it and transfer it to YouTube or Facebook without you even being at the computer. Very, very cool. Rick Barrett is the VP of Operations for Maxon, the Americas, and has been helping designers discover and take advantage of Cinema 4D for over 15 years. He's a frequent contributor to Maxon Cineversity, which is a website that Maxon runs. And Rick has developed plugins for Cinema 4D, including CV-VRCam, CV-ArtSmart, and CV-SmartExport, none of which I understand.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, welcome.
That was my line.
Thanks for having me.
So help me understand, what does a VP of Operations do?
I manage the technical side of Maxon, basically the tech support department, which we offer really great free tech support, the IT side of it, and sort of help define the general strategy. Do a lot of work with the Cineversity site, helping users with new workflows and training and some plugins.
Well, which gets me to the fact that you wear a software hat, and James Mathers, who we just heard from, wears a hardware hat, and Kevin is sort of looking across all of the different industry segments that are out there. How would you describe the state of the software industry now from your perspective, which is art and media?
Well, I think it's interesting. There's people are consuming media in different ways than ever before, and the workflows, I think, have gotten easier and easier. The technical requirements have fragmented so that it can be as simple as using an iPhone or as complex as 4K and 8K renders with, 4 graphics cards in a computer. It gets more and more complex on the high end. So.
But are you seeing that the high end is expanding, or is the low end expanding and not migrating up? I'm sensing that people are doing less expensive work. More and more people are doing less and less expensive work, but the budgets are drying up, which is really crushing the high end.
Yeah.
I think that there is a challenge for the people in the middle to move up to the high end, and definitely the low end is expanding more and more. As the workflows get easier and the production, the distribution there's less and less money, in YouTube distribution and things like that.
One of the challenges that a lot of software developers have is the whole concept of free updates in perpetuity, which the App Store started, is that you buy it once, but then you get upgrades forever and ever without having to pay for it. That has to change the development cycle in terms of how you find funding, doesn't it?
Well, and I think that's why a lot of software is starting to move to a subscription-type model, because that eliminates that problem. But we've been very committed to perpetual licensing at Maxon. So it's a problem we continue to face, but one that we attack with as much vigor as we can.
Well, without being able to share secrets, because, I can ask, you won't answer, but it means that you're always having to look for new customers, because the revenue comes from people that buy the first time. The revenue doesn't come from ongoing customers, does it?
Well, we have annual upgrades, and where we, add features to the software, and so we do get recurring revenue from the annual upgrades and our service agreements, which include the annual upgrades. But yes, you're always looking for new customers. I think any software company is, regardless of whether it's perpetual or subscription.
With the constant change in technology, and 3-4 years ago we're looking at 3D, and then we were looking at 4K, and now we're looking at HDR and VR, which we'll talk more about in a minute. It gets terrifying for media creators and filmmakers to decide what technology to buy into. How do they decide where to invest dollars, especially when dollars are getting harder and harder to find?
Well, it is difficult. The fantastic thing about VR from the 3D software perspective is that there's really not an additional investment once you invest into the 3D software. It's not like on the video side with cameras where you have to make a high-end investment in a camera system for VR. With Cinema 4D, there's no additional cost once you have the software to explore VR.
Well, help me understand the difference, because I'm hearing terms like 360 video and VR and augmented reality. How would you define the differences between these?
Well, VR
define those, will you? We had that discussion before this thing.
Exactly, yeah. VR can take two forms, basically. You've got VR video, which is pre-rendered. It's an experience that can be delivered on YouTube or Facebook, and it's a workflow that our artists are familiar with, because it's basically, you have to render in a special format, but then you can edit and composite pretty much in the same way that you do now. And then you have interactive VR, which takes things to a game development type of a workflow.
Where the situation changes based upon gameplay?
Well, it's more programming involved.
It's more CGI.
Well, you'd have to export your assets into a game engine, and the game engine does the rendering. Right. So it's just a different workflow than our artists, are really, most of them, familiar with right now. But the nice thing about pre-rendered VR is that it's a workflow that people really can understand now, and it's easy to distribute on YouTube or Facebook.
Now, does this imply that all VR is 3D?
No. Well, I would say all VR is 3D, but 360 video can be either monoscopic or stereoscopic. And so I would say that to be a VR video, it would have to be a stereoscopic video.
So 3D video, a 360 video could be captured by a camera. You just put it out in the middle of a crowd somewhere and you're capturing the video. VR implies that it's being drawn, that it's artificial, that it's not captured with a camera?
No, it could still be captured with a camera, but it would have to be captured in stereo, which is actually very tricky to do with the camera systems that are available today.
Then how do you see the difference between stereoscopic 3D and VR?
There's not necessarily a difference. They marry each other. The interesting thing is that I think that our clients are going to be asked more and more to composite motion graphics on top of VR video, to composite or to actually build VFX, set extensions, matte painting in VR video. So I don't think that it's an either or, but it's an and.
This might be too simplistic, but the Oculus Rift, which is tethered, always tethered, that's more of an immersive VR experience then, right? Than a Google Cardboard, which is put your iPhone in the cardboard and do the 360 thing.
Well, the big difference between the Cardboard, which is an experience that basically anyone can have by putting their phone in a $10, $15 piece of cardboard or one they got free, and the Oculus Rift is positional tracking. With Cardboard and the Gear VR, you have rotational tracking. You can move your head around. But once you move to the Rift or the Vive, it can actually track where you are in space. Okay. So you can actually look around the side of something rather than just looking around from a single point.
In other words, you can move around an object with the Rift, and with Cardboard, you just simply pan from one side to the other. Is that what I'm hearing?
Basically, yeah.
And down and up.
Well, right. all of these would be considered disruptive technologies, new ways of creating media that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And we've talked about virtual reality and 360 video and augmented reality. Are we seeing other disruptive technologies? And that's a lead into talking about what can we expect at NAB.
I think that as far as 3D is concerned, VR and AR are the primary disruptive technologies I see right now. Certainly on video, you've got things like HDR and 4K, 8K, things like that. But as far as 3D is concerned, VR and AR change the workflow quite a bit, and especially depending on whether you go with the interactive form or the video form of VR.
Now, why does it change the workflow?
There's different rules, and the interesting thing about VR is that we're still writing the rules. That's what's really fun about it, is that it's not moving into something, a workflow that we're already familiar with, but it's a workflow where, every day something's changing. And I've always been someone who loves to learn. And so it's a great thing about this technology is every day there's something new to learn about VR. And there's always something new to teach, too, to help people understand the workflow. So that's what's been really fun about our initiatives on Cineversity with VR.
Well, one of the things that I want to get a sense of is where is VR working? I mean, there's lots of people that are saying we're doing VR for this or doing VR for that, but what are some of the success stories in terms of genres where VR works? And the other is, where can 360 video work? And you had some examples, especially in news, that I wasn't expecting. So tackle 360 video first.
Okay. Well, I know that in news especially, there's a company called Riot, R-Y-O-T, that's developing a lot of news stories. ABC News just did a piece on Nepal, putting you basically on the ground in Nepal post-earthquake to see, you know, it's a new kind of journalism where you actually can feel what it's like to be in a conflict zone or post-disaster. And in many cases, it can drive people to action, to donate or to, you know, support the cause, whatever that might be. And also, it just immerses you more in the news story itself. So those are interesting experiences. I think that
action sports. Brain Farm is now way into VR, and they're doing a lot of interesting action sport kind of videos.
Right. Fox has been streaming lots of things. I watched part of the Big East March Madness competition was broadcast in VR.
Oh, really?
Yeah, through NextVR.
Where?
On the Gear VR.
How do you do
NextVR app.
sports in VR? Again,
Yeah, where do
I'm
they
having
put
a
the
hard
camera?
time getting my brain wrapped around this, so try that one more time.
Well, in that case, and this is where it's interesting, is we haven't seen the motion graphics build into these types of things yet, but I think that's what's coming next, is to bring Cinema 4D into it. But for sports in VR, you've got they've got several 360 cameras in various places on the court, in the case of the basketball, and you can sort of put yourself in that position. I think what'll be even more interesting for sports is I'm a big NASCAR fan. And already with NASCAR, you can watch the cars.
Right.
It's a video game type of a playback where you can watch the cars. You can follow whichever car you want. Well, with VR, you could actually put people inside each of the cars so that they can be in the driver's seat, basically. Whether it be with a 360 camera or whether it be with real-time rendering.
The clutch and the pedal, and oh my gosh.
So where does Maxon fit in with all of this? I mean, what piece of the puzzle do you solve?
Well, it's adding motion graphics onto your sports VR or your news piece. It's adding visual effects, matte painting, and set extensions into VR. I mean, it's really tricky to shoot VR because the camera sees everything. So the ability to do set extensions and things is going to be really important. Things like scientific and medical, being able to illustrate things that are happening inside the body and actually put people there. And that's what I think is really fun and interesting is the opportunities for education. I mean, to have kids be able to be transported into these places, it's a virtual field trip every day. It's like the Magic School Bus all over again, you know? It's, my daughter, you know, has toured the Palace of Versailles virtually through the Google Cardboard. Just earlier today, I was exploring the Royal Academy of Arts has put up an exhibit of Ai Weiwei, and they actually have a virtual experience where you can experience that without traveling to London.
What about stories? Have you ever seen anyone attempt or done a story that you said this works?
There's some, and without listing specific examples, I think that where we're at right now with that is short form. I think that first of all, to look at someone putting a headset on for 2 hours
it ain't going to happen.
but 5 minutes is the perfect length. It's a length that a director can think about how the specific challenges of VR can be dealt with. You know.
Speaking of that, how do you edit this stuff?
Well, with VR video, it's pretty much a traditional editing process. There are tools and utilities where you can put a headset on and
I know with
be inside.
Tim Dashwood's plugin,
Right.
you can put the headset on and metal, and those are the two things. But I guess you have to preview it every once in a while. Take the headset off, put it on. I don't know.
It's
weird.
It's a little bit of both. Yeah.
How about advertising and brand management? Do they have a place to play, a role to play in VR?
Absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of demand for brands to use VR, especially this year with VR being so hot. I mean, you attach the VR tag to anything, and it instantly becomes a top news item. I think that brands are going to want VR content just to be a part of that craze, you know, whether it's valuable or not. But I think it is valuable because it provides an opportunity for a brand to get people to immerse themselves in that brand, distraction-free for 2 to 5 minutes, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, a commercial might, even if you're watching the commercial, you're distracted, right? But when you're inside a VR headset, you really, that's your world.
You are immersed.
Right. and because this is a new thing and there's not a ton of content out there yet, people will explore content, even if it's blatantly branded, just for the sake of being able to try out a new VR experience.
Actually, there is a ton of content out there in YouTube VR, and it's all crap. And so, I'm honest to God, I haven't seen anything. I know you said there's a couple of things out there that are really good, but I haven't
there
found
are some
them
good
yet.
things, and there's more on the Gear VR side of things. But it's definitely a challenge with VR.
Download these plugins like Verse and New York Times and things like that to really enjoy some of the stuff that they're doing. And I did. I downloaded Verse and watched some of the stuff that they're doing. And the interesting stuff is news. So
yeah, there's definitely a challenge to do this right.
And thinking about doing it right, Rick, where can people go to learn about the products that Maxon has available?
Our website's maxon.net, and you can also visit cineversity.com/learn/VR for more information on our VR efforts.
And Rick Barrett is the VP of Operations for Maxon. And if you haven't had a chance to see Maxon's booth at NAB, it's all artists all the time. If you want to see what can be done with virtual reality or just 4D work that's 3D over time, check out Maxon's booth at NAB. Rick, thanks for joining us today. It's been wonderful having you visit.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
It's time for a BuZZ flashback, 5 years ago today.
What Signiant does is we have a protocol that was designed and built here at Signiant, and what it will do is it will essentially take away or account for some of the inefficiencies of FTP. So what Signiant will do is we have a custom protocol that will allow you to take advantage of that entire pipe.
This was a BuZZ flashback.
Welcome back. You know, Mike, I was just thinking, you've had a chance to hear from 3 different perspectives. So now that you have a much better understanding, what's your view of the industry?
I don't know, Larry, I'm confused. Has anything changed since an hour ago?
No, you know, we've got consensus that the world's confusing.
It is. I mean, it's getting tougher for the media professional. It's getting... But then again, is it tougher now than it was, say, 5 years ago? Because everything changes all the time. It's changed since the 1920s and 30s and 40s.
Yeah, but I think the big difference now is that budgets are more squeezed than they have been. And the gear still costs money.
So what do you do to adapt? You adapt. You somehow adapt. There are people out there adapting.
Can't rob a bank?
Something like that. But I don't know exactly what you do to adapt, but people are adapting and people will adapt. And so in that case, the glass is half full. So.
You know, one of the things we're going to do next week is we've got a special show on the BuZZ. We're going to take a look back at the last year, but then we're going to look ahead at NAB 2016. And we've got a special lineup of guests, people we haven't had on the show for a long time. We're going to start with Steve Martin, the trainer. In fact, Steve founded the BuZZ more than 15 years ago, and Philip Hodgett's probably the leading technologist, futurist. And then Michael Kamas and Serena Catania. We'll have Ned Soltz and Randy Altman all joining us, and several surprise guests, giving us a chance to take a look at not only where we are now, but preview what we can expect from NAB coming up in less than a month.
We should film it in VR. We should film this whole thing in VR. Digital production BuZZ in VR. It'd be awesome. The only podcast ever in VR.
It would be something. And thinking of something, I want to thank our guest for tonight, Kevin Bourke, the principal.
Put it in the cloud.
BourkePR, James Mathers, the founder of Digital Cinema Society, and Rick Barrett, the VP of Operations at Maxon. There's a lot of history in our industry. It's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Thousands of interviews, all online and all available today. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Friday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at Digital Production Buzz. And Mike is going to be opening our own Instagram, Snapchat, Vine channel.
That's right. I'll get it all done by next Thursday.
You can count on it. Our theme
in VR.
Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv.
Yeah, we could do it in 3D instead
to
of
learn
VR.
how they can help you. Ignore the guy on the other side of the table.
We
Our
can bring the
supervising
excitement of
producer,
3D
Serena
back,
Catania,
Larry.
show producer, Debbie Price, production team led by Brianna Murphy and Ed Golia, Keegan Guy, and James Miller. On behalf of The Voice, Mike Horton, my name's Larry Jordan, and thanks for watching.
Goodbye.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988. And by ImagineProducts.com, specializing in workflow applications for over 25 years.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from The Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching The Digital Production Buzz.